Hey everyone, what's up? What's going on? And welcome back. Can't Drop here today. Finally bringing you all the Rylakstalkers Legendary versus the Wildfire Cluster Legendary. Only took me a month for two rank 2 legendaries and about 100k to 130k gold. So it took me a bit of farming and a bit of time, but the wait is finally over, and hopefully this answers a lot of your questions that you have about the decision between the two. In this video, we are going to go over the pros and the cons of each, or the good and the bad from the testing I have done so far. We will go over what I think each legendary is good for in my opinion, such as which one I think is better for M+ or raid, along with why I think that, what the damage difference between Rylakstalkers and Wildfire Cluster is from what I have done for dungeons, and then I will give you all my thoughts on Rylakstalkers or Wildfire Cluster and which one I prefer to use. But before we get into the content, I just wanted to let everyone know I have seen all the comments about the macro guide, so I hear you all, and I will be doing my best to start working on that video. But I really want to try and get out a few other videos beforehand, so please be patient with me. I will get it out. So if you have any other questions or basically anything you would like to know about Survival Hunter, let me know. I also have an upcoming video on testing a couple different things with covenants. I do not want to spoil it just yet. I know you see it in this video. Not going to spoil it just yet, so please bear with me. This will be on either my next video or the video after that. I'm not sure 100% just yet. I'm still trying to figure out the schedule to an exact T. So with all that being said, let's get right on into the content. First up is pros and cons of both Wildfire Cluster and Rylakstalkers. Let's get started with the Wildfire Cluster. Basically, the pros is it's extra AoE damage without extra buttons. So you throw a bomb, you deal the damage. Simple as that. It has good AoE damage. It usually does about 8 to 11% of your overall damage throughout a dungeon, and that's pretty significant. You know, that's a nice chunk of damage. And it works fairly well with low haste because you just throw a bomb, use your carve, throw a bomb, you know, whenever you can, just throw more bombs. And you basically just get the extra damage off of that. So it works well with low haste in my opinion. Cons. It's kind of really boring. It's just one of those Legos. Doesn't really pique any extra interest in a different playstyle to the build. It doesn't really do anything to the spec besides add a little extra AoE damage. So it's kind of boring. It also sucks sometimes not getting to use a bomb like in fast-paced M+. You know, your CD isn't always up. And that's a lot of loss in consistent AoE damage throughout the dungeon. So basically overall, for Wildfire Cluster or WFC, it's nice when you have bomb charges. Feels really bad when you have none. And for fast-paced runs, it can slow your group down. It can cause you to lower your damage overall in the dungeon. It can hinder your ability to basically do as much AoE damage as you possibly can. I mean, if it's your only legendary, then it's definitely not going to hinder anything for you. It's just going to give you a boost. But if you are choosing between Rylakstalkers and Wildfire Cluster, I would stay tuned towards the end of the video. It's lackluster on single target. So it's, you know, like I said, it's lackluster. There's not really much you can do. And another con of it is basically if a boss is running or your tank is kiting mobs or anything and you throw a bomb, your bomb doesn't, it doesn't follow the mob or the boss. So it doesn't land around them if they're running away. It lands where the bomb hit. But we'll get more into that later in the video. So let's move on to the pros and cons of Rylakstalkers. So the pros, it has good AoE and good single target use. Now that's a combo I like to hear. And it's much more applicable to single target, being that you gain a reset off of your single target damage ability, Raptor Strike or Mongoose Bite, meaning you can focus one target while still getting bonus damage for free procs on your bombs. That to me is a win. That's a big win. But a con, it can be a real pain in the ass when you have 0 procs. Like, it can just be bad when you have no procs at all. It can feel really, like you don't have any legendary. Like, you'd much rather have the Wildfire Cluster Lego because at least you're getting the consistent damage. But based on RNG, we all know how RNG works, so you could get really lucky or you could get crapped on the whole dungeon. I mean, it's kind of a really bad way to say it or a really crappy way to look at it, but it's true. You could get a lot of procs or you could get very little procs. So here's to spamming and here's to hoping, huh? Now, let's move on to which Lego is better for what. Is one better for M+? Is one better for Raid? Are they equal? Does it matter which one you use? Well, I guess the best way to answer that would be to say, well, let's look at the Wildfire Cluster. WFC or Wildfire Cluster is always reliable to proc. Whenever you throw a bomb, it procs. Meaning, you got bomb charges, you have extra damage. And whatever is around your target that you hit the bomb with, the extra cluster damage hits the targets around it. So it's good, consistent AoE on use. But the bad thing is, if your tank kites mobs or bosses like I just said, a lot of your little extra clusters for the extra damage you get, they aren't always reliable. Because when your tank is kiting, like I said before, the bomb hits the target and falls where the bomb hit. Doesn't follow the targets, doesn't follow around the targets, doesn't nothing. Just lands where the bomb hit. So after all that info, so what is it good for? Well, in my opinion, it is usable in single target, but falls on the short end in fast AoE Mythic Plus groups. Really good for, when you have bomb uses. It's great extra damage on bomb uses. It's like an extra 2,200 or extra 2,300 damage for me right now with the amount of Versa Mastery I have. So that's one bomb. If I get a crit, it's like a 4K crit. Extra 2K damage on initial hit with the bomb for all AoE targets around, plus the dot damage. Shit, that's just good damage. It's really meh in single target. You can't use Carve in single target to refresh your cooldown like you can in AoE pulls, where you can get 5 seconds off of a charge or the cooldown of your Wildfire Bomb when you can hit 5 targets with your Carve. But in single target, if you only have a couple of seconds left on your Wildfire Bomb, I could see you carving, but it's 35 focus, and a Mongoose Bite or a Raptor Strike is 30. So, the math is simple as soon as you look at it like that. It's good in fast-paced Mythic Dungeon groups. I'm not saying it's great, but in my opinion, the best bet for it is in slower M+ progression if you're trying to learn with a group. It is a good Lego, but it's useless waiting on charges unless you have extreme management over your bomb cooldowns, and even then you can run out of uses easily. Even if you are managing bombs and Carve extremely well, you can still fall behind on being able to throw bombs and losing damage on it. But with all that said, now let's move on to the Rylakstalkers. So this legendary, I haven't been able to test it in Raid yet. I am solely basing this single target Raid opinion off of the longer boss fights from higher level Mythic Plus dungeons and just boss fights in general that take a while, doing the mechanics and seeing how it reacts to all of that. So with what I have tested so far and what you're all watching is, my hunter using the Rylakstalkers Lego. And overall, with all the M+ bosses I have killed in 3 days, I could say happily my bomb damage all around has increased by 15 to 25% per dungeon due to the free charges refreshed by Raptor Strike. And if you use Mongoose Bite, you could even get more procs because technically Mongoose Bite is the highly spammable, ability. You don't have to kill Command Raptor Strike, kill Command Raptor Strike. You could just spam out Mongoose Bites and you could hope for more procs. That's always a way to go about it. But with that 15 to 25% increase in damage just from the free charges, to tell you all the truth, as I've been testing this legendary, it really feels like the more Raptor Strikes or Mongoose Bites you hit one target with, focus down, the more charges you get back. It's actually extremely weird how that feels. Maybe it's just because you're not looking at different targets and stuff like that, but it really feels like when I'm focusing down a boss, I can get like 5 to 8 charges back during a boss fight. And that's a lot of extra damage, especially when you pair it with the Guerrilla Tactics talent. Well, like I said before, I haven't tested it in Raid yet. Basically Mythic Plus boss testing. I will have a chance to test this legendary in Castle Nathria Heroic coming up this coming Tuesday, so stay tuned and I will be letting you guys in. I will be producing a short video to let you guys know actually 100% how it turned out and how it worked throughout the boss fights and the mechanics themselves. So this is all just so you guys have a better understanding on which one you prefer for Raid or which one you might prefer for Mythic Plus. Hopefully this will save you guys a boatload of Soul Ash because I've spent all my Soul Ash since week 1. So to tell you the truth, out of all this testing, it's really nice. And the more I hit a single target, like I said, the more I feel like I'm getting more procs. So I would say as of right now, it is very viable. It's just very viable in raids or single target boss fights, and it is extremely viable in Mythic Plus, fast paced, time keeping. You're gonna make this time on the 15. You don't have time for even a healer to really drink, let alone to wait for a cooldown. That's just the way I think about it. But overall, Mythic Plus, it's really good. Like I said, especially fast-paced groups. Not worried about mobs moving away, basically because, the cluster lands where your bomb hits, but the bomb just, you throw it and whatever's around it gets dotted up and gets hit. So you're not losing any extra damage. You're not worried about losing the extra legendary damage that, can sometimes basically lower your damage overall and total on the dungeon if you miss one of those. Like every one you miss for me is basically minus 2k overall damage throughout the whole dungeon. So if I'm throwing 25 bombs, that's 50k damage overall I'm missing, and that's actually, may not sound like a lot, but the more bombs you throw, the more damage you lose, especially if the tank is kiting them out and you're not able to get the cluster effect to proc or work for you in that effect. Which is better in my opinion overall? I'd say hands down, Rylakstalkers is way more effective in both situations. Main reasons being very versatile and fast situational pulls for fast and plus progressive groups that, you need to time the dungeon. And it's, from what I've seen in Mythic Plus dungeon fights, it's very viable for single target boss fights, especially because it resets off of your normal spammable ability, and mixed with guerrilla tactics, it's 100% increased initial damage, and you still get the dot damage. If you can get even 3 bombs you can get 1 reset in the time, the normal 2 that you would take to get the cooldown for both of your bomb stacks to come back, then you're good. I wouldn't even worry about it. You're overall increasing your damage because the boss gets kited, or, it's just one of those things. It makes your life a lot easier not having to worry about the loss of the damage from a boss or a mob moving. Makes your life a lot easier, less stressful. And overall, I've seen roughly between the two I'd say about a 5% damage increase. When I get really bad procs, it's probably about a 3 to 4.5% damage increase overall throughout a dungeon versus, as Rylakstalkers over Wildfire Cluster. So even at that, it's still a damage bonus over the 8 to 11% that your Wildfire Cluster is giving you throughout the dungeon. So after all that info, I want to give you guys, my overall thoughts on Rylakstalkers versus Wildfire Cluster. And to tell you the truth, they both do really good damage. They are both very, I can't say fun. Rylakstalkers is a hell of a lot more fun due to the fact that you get random reset procs that you can just throw random bombs. But throughout all 3 legendaries that I have played with, Injectors, Wildfire Cluster, and Rylakstalkers, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, overall, Rylakstalkers has been the better choice for me. I kind of wish I made this legendary first, but due to the fact that it dropped off a Sludge Fist and it took me a little bit to get it, I was unfortunately not able to do so the first week, so it's alright. I hope this video can answer a lot of your questions, and on that note, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If so, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, smash the like button. Also, I will leave a link down in the description below for the giveaway video that I did a few days back. Just click the link, watch the video, it'll give you instructions, and then enter to win. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, I'll catch you all later. Can't drop out.